In the 60s, I taught English 2 years in Peace Corps Senegal. Later, those skills were needed to help with another volunteer, a traditional healer from the Congo.
Mama Maddo.
I did the African healer to focus attention on knowledge of plant life dying out.
Mama Maddo practiced healing with herbal medicines, treating Africans and Europeans alike in the regional city of Kikwit. In this translation session, where she's working on a book in progress entitled The African Healer, she tells of a drug for infertility, as well as a treatment for malnutrition among infants and children.
All right. Kikoko is a tubercle. It's a root.
You were in Zaire?
Yes, I spent 3 years in Zaire in the northern region called Equateur in the city of Bumba, a major rice-producing area. My biggest accomplishment probably was being co-author of the first public health textbook in the Lingala language, which is called Tolingi Kolonga Bokono, which translates into "We want to defeat illness." And I established the Community Health Center of Bumba. My 3 years in Peace Corps service there.
It is imperative that the knowledge and traditions of Mama Maddo and healers like her be passed on. But the healers are the vehicles, the enablers. They must have their tools. Without our rainforests, we will be subject to the winds of time, or we will have lost our roots.
Years ago, this is about Sierra Leone. Anyone serve in Sierra Leone here? Oh, wonderful. Okay. Well, a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to represent our government at the second term inauguration of Ernest Bai Koroma, who was being sworn in as president again. And so I went to the ceremony, and then afterwards there was a state dinner. And at the state dinner, I was placed right next to the president. So I was at his left hand. And so in the course of conversation, I was there and talking to him, and I had read his bio, and I knew that he came from a small village named McKinney. So I was, making small talk, and I said, how did a young man from McKinney grow up to be president of his nation? And he said to me, there's a Peace Corps volunteer in that story. And I said, really? Tell me about it. He said, yeah, when I was a young man, there was a woman named Sharon. She was a Peace Corps volunteer, and she came to my community. And she was a teacher at the high school. I was much younger. But after school, she had a program, an after-school program, for anyone in her community, in our community, who wanted to come. And she offered homework help, but she also had a service club. And she is the first person that I remember that talked to us about the importance of serving a cause greater than ourselves, of the joy that comes from helping others, of the importance of practicing random acts of kindness. And so we would, do little service projects. We would clean up the market area, pick up the trash, or we would help the carpenter at the school repair the desks after the kids had, broken them. Just little projects like that. But he says, throughout my life at various stages, I've thought about her so often as I was, graduating from high school, and her, homework help really helped me. I developed some very good study habits because of her. So as I was graduating from high school and going into university, I thought about her. And then when I became a student leader, I was actually student body president of my college class, I thought about the leadership that she taught me. And so I started a community service club at my university. And then when I became a business owner, I tried to be a business that took care of my employees. And I tried to be a company that demonstrated corporate social responsibility and invested in my own village. And then when I became president, I thought about her and the fact that she was so concerned about, those who are least among us. And so I really wanted to be sure that I offered health services and that I focused on education. All these things, I thought about Sharon. And I said, wow, that is so beautiful. Have you ever told her? And he said, are you kidding? I was 11 when I saw her. Last time I saw her. I didn't have the words for that. It was really only as I grew up and as I reflected on her and what I learned from her that I was really able to give voice to what it is I gained from her. So I know what I was thinking at that moment. I was thinking, I will never see this man again. I literally, that was what I was thinking. So I said to him, tell you what, if you ever come to Washington, D.C., let me know, and I will hook you up with Sharon. Now, anyone who knows anything about Peace Corps' early days knows that was an incredibly irresponsible thing because our records are terrible. But I literally thought, I mean, honestly, I can remember thinking, I will never see this guy again. So I got back, I thought nothing of it, and then, like, literally, 10 days later, I get a phone call from him. He said, guess what? President Obama invited me to the White House. And I'm going to be there next week, and I can't wait to meet you. Terrible. So I was like, any details, like what year it was? No, couldn't even remember. It's like, mid-60s. I said, well, how about a name? Beyond Sharon, nothing. You remembered nothing. So I just want to say this was an irresponsible thing for me to do, but it wasn't completely crazy because when we had gone back into Sierra Leone, just like 2 years before that, we actually had connected the deputy ambassador with his Peace Corps teacher. And we had done it in a beautiful ceremony at Peace Corps. So that's kind of what was in my mind. But meanwhile, here it was, he didn't know anything about Sharon, and I had a week to find one. So I called down to our office of Third Goal and Return Volunteer Services, and I explained my dilemma. And they said, oh no, we'll never be able to find it. I said, look, just find me any Sharon. So they called me back 2 hours later and they said, you know what? We found 2 Sharons who served in Sierra Leone, and one of them actually served in McKinney. Her name is Sharon Alvarado, and we have her phone number. I was like, score. I thought my prayers were answered. So I phoned Sharon and I explained. And she said, oh no, I don't recognize that name, and I am confident that none of my kids ever grew up to be president. So I said, Sharon, please, I beg of you. I am really in trouble. I promised him a Sharon. I said, look, you don't have to pretend to be that Sharon. You can just represent all Sharons. Or at least all return volunteers from Sierra Leone. And she was like, I just retired and moved to Florida. I really don't want to come to Washington, D.C. And I said, Sharon, please, for your country, come on. So finally she agreed. Now I just want to say, just for 1 second, I want to say that Sharon was a remarkable woman. When she returned from Peace Corps, I think she was from Chicago. She went to Chicago, and for 40 years she taught in the south side of Chicago, in some of our nation's roughest neighborhoods. And she taught in the first school that had a metal detector. That's how bad her school was. But she saw in those kids in Chicago the same kind of promise that she saw in her kids in Sierra Leone. Kids who had so much potential but so little opportunity. And she really devoted her life to helping those who didn't have the wherewithal to have opportunity exposed to them. So she just really devoted her life. And she was an amazing person. But I really had to twist her arm to come to Washington, D.C. So on the appointed day, she came a half an hour early. It was clear she was terrified. She was very uncomfortable. She said to me, look, I am really timid and I don't like the stage. So I said, it's okay, we'll do it in my office. And she came in and she had an enormous photo album this big. Like the old-fashioned ones with like tassels and leather and the little black corners with the black and white photos. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, she had that photo album. And she was holding it in front of her like a shield. And she was terrified. So then he comes in, and he's 6'2", and he's very regal, and he's wearing an Armani suit, and he's walking with great purpose, as presidents do. And he's followed by his general, a 5-star general, who's like dripping with little medals, who's half his size, and he's carrying his briefcase. So that's the scene. So this guy is very presidential walking in, and he's followed by this person who's trying to run behind him, keeping up with him. And he walks into my office, and Sharon by this time has moved to the very farthest corner of my office. And he spots her, and he crosses my office in 5 strides and throws his arms around her and says, "Sharon!" And meanwhile, she's trapped because she's got her photo album like this. And I was standing behind him looking over his shoulder at her, and her eyes are like this gigantic. And then he said 2 words that changed everything. He said, "Touré Street." Touré Street was the street where she lived, and she was the Sharon. She was the Sharon. And they sat down on my couch, and she opened her photo album, and there were pictures of him as an 11-year-old boy. Photos that he had never seen. He had no photos of his childhood because no one had photos back then. There were pictures of his grandfather, who had passed away like 30 years ago. And pictures of his best friend who had moved to the UK, who he hadn't seen in 20 years. Now Sharon, she's like one of these totally honest people. I promise you, if I were in her place, I would have at least pretended I remembered him. But she was like, I don't really remember you. I pointed to, one of the kids in there. And she's like, "Baba?" No one called him Ernest. His nickname was Baba. She's like, "Baba, you grew up to be president?" She's like, "I can't believe that." She's like, "You were so naughty." And then he sat down and he told her all the things he had told me about the many times in his life that he had thought of her, all the lessons he had learned. And they were not, it's not like she taught him how to do his multiplication table or things. It was like the values that she lived by. It was the fact that, he was watching as she helped someone on the street, or he was watching when she helped one of the little kids with their, writing, or, it was the small acts of kindness that she demonstrated every single day, and he was watching that, and he told her that. And then she said, "Wow, Papa, that's so amazing. Like, you never listen to me. I can't believe it." It was really hilarious. Anyway, they were weeping, both of them. It was the most beautiful reunion I've ever encountered. And then we got up, and he went down and gave a beautiful speech about the importance of Sharon in his life. And then he talked for about 15 minutes about the importance of Peace Corps in the lives of his people. And he said, Sharon's influence in my life was profound, but even more important is the impact of your volunteers on the lives of my people. So I just want to thank all of you for your service. Because of you, we have friends in every corner of the world, people who love America because of you. And some of them grow up to be president, shockingly. Actually, right now, in Africa alone, there are 12 presidents who say they got their start from Peace Corps Volunteer. Wow.
For me, the Peace Corps is more about making changes about in your own life and in others. It sort of awakens things in people, whether it's dormant or it's always there, but you didn't know how to focus it. It gives you like a way of trying it out for the first time when you're doing the Peace Corps, but then it also gives you sort of the confidence and the knowledge to then do it, the rest of your life. I mean, I think, God, I see so many people who've been in the Peace Corps and they're still out there making changes, trying to, just be a part of the world. I was recreating the Leif Ericsson voyage, and so we actually wanted to start in Greenland like the Vikings did. It was really just about, trying to appreciate and understand this culture that's really totally misunderstood, and to look at what they did and try to copy it, achieve it, using the same technology, and the same, hopefully learned skill sets, and then using natural fibers like the hemp, and using the wooden boats, put together with trunnels and iron rivets that are handmade.
Sets that we need to
hold on to. Yeah, I mean, I think that was for me what it was like hit that over the head was the idea that, the past and also people who live in a sort of slower paced life even right now still are doing things in a way that we don't want to forget about and lose sight of, you know, and we want to try to embrace and learn.
We untied all of this rope Julianna brought from Hodding's ship and remade it into smaller ropes. Well, the thing is that the diameter of the rope is decided by how many layers you're going to use when spinning. And at the moment I'm only using 2 layers, as you can see. I just folded one in the middle. I of course still put it on the stick and again continue doing it by hands. And in this sense the Vikings could make the basic for the ropes really, really big. Well,